So today we're going to be talking about Thurgood Marshall, his contributions, what he did, why he's important, and are his impacts still relevant today? So stay tuned. So my name's Ian, and then I have
Eric.
and then sadly, due to unforeseen circumstances, our other friend Dimitri could not be here with us today, but he'll be joining us via cell phone. So if you want to say hi.
Hello.
All right. So Eric, I'm gonna ask you a question. Okay.
Yeah. What's the question?
Do you know why Thurgood Marshall? No. Do you know in what ways Thurgood Marshall contributed to civil rights?
I don't actually.
You don't? Okay, you want me to tell you?
Yeah, explain.
All right, I'll tell you.
Please.
Okay, so Thurgood Marshall, he contributed in a variety of ways to civil rights, and the first one we'll be going over is he became the first African American Supreme Court justice. So the Supreme Court, they decide major things in our country that influence us. So being able to finally have a black influence on it is great for the rights and the advancements of black Americans. And while he was there, he fought against legal segregation in America, in which he won the landmark case, Brown versus Board of Education. So that case, that allowed us to have diverse schools, and it ended the wide segregation that we had in schools where, white kids would be given better schools, and black kids and Mexican kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids, they'd be given worse schools. Right, and this would just continue to increase the learning curve, and then as a result, the hatred would be passed down generations for generations, leading this to be a cycle that never ends. Yeah, and then what he also did, right, is he argued in the case Smith versus Albright in 1944, which ended the unjust white primary in the southern states. So, we didn't get this from the article, but it was like all common knowledge. I know a lot about this subject, and what the white primary was, it was a practice of the southern states of the United States. So these were usually known as the most racist laws, the most Jim Crow laws and everything, right? So what they would do is, black people were not allowed to vote and everything, right? But what they would do is they wouldn't allow them to participate in the primary elections. So these primary elections would give them the chance to, decide who they want their candidate to be, and they'd hear out their case, and I want this guy to represent my party, or I want this lady to represent my party. But now they wouldn't let the black voters vote, and they wouldn't be able to decide who they wanted. So it was just once again who the white voters wanted, and it keeps them in power. So a lot of times these systems were put in place to keep the white people in power and keep the cycle going. So what they do is they'd give them the vote, and they wouldn't allow them to use it. So it'd just be more of like, how do I say this? Like they just for show, right? They'd had it, they didn't let him use it, and then he ended this case. With this case, Smith versus Albright in 1944, he put an end to this. And then my source for what Thurgood Marshall contributes to civil rights, before I mentioned the white primary, it came from, let me pull it up right here. It was from mps.gov, right? And I accessed this article on January 9, 2025. And it didn't have an author or anything, so it just said the author was MPS.gov, so we'll give them their credit.
Alright. Well, that was interesting to hear. Like, I understand now. Like you said, like, Marshall is so important and influential towards civil rights.
I might have an idea, but I think you'd be able to give a better overview to our audience than me, so
Yeah.
tell me.
So, first off, a big reason why he's very influential is because of the Brown Board education case. He fought hard for the case, and the Supreme Court they decided the fact that segregation in schools, white kids in white schools, black kids in black schools, like it's not okay. They ruled it unconstitutional, and although it was a big thing, the process was slow. Like some states, some cities, like the most racist cities like Birmingham or something like that, they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
They tried to get ways around it so that they could keep segregation in schools.
Yeah.
But so they signed another thing. It's called Brown 2, which they.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Yeah.
They sped up the process for desegregation across society.
Whoa.
Which is big, very big. He also Thurgood Marshall also worked with the NAACP to build a strategy.
And what's that?
It's sort of like a national I'm like a national something for like organization for people of color, and he built a strategy to challenge the segregation laws and discrimination across like in many areas of society, stuff like that. Overall, Thurgood Marshall, he we actually have more to add about the NAACP. It was to build strategies, right? So you know, he used his legal skills to fight laws that kept people of color from having the same opportunities as white people. And he understood that the fight for equality wasn't just about one piece, it was about challenging the entire system. So he had to go everywhere.
So he went after everything, right?
Yeah, he went after everything. Tried to challenge everything. Abolish segregation, unjust everything.
And you said the case he did was Brown too?
Yeah,
Brown too.
It was something like Brown too. So, in conclusion, Thurgood Marshall put up extreme amounts of effort to fight for civil rights and the freedom for people of color. Right? So everyone could be free. Everyone could have the same opportunities as this guy or that guy. And like,
so we'd all be equal with all the same chance.
Yes.
We'd all be do. You know, if we want to go to this school, if we want to go to that school, we can do it, right? We're not like limited to our circumstances where
That's right.
some kid might have better crayons than us, and then we end up with like chalk.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly why he ends up as one of the most influential people in American history. And according to my source, let me pull it up here. My source, oyes.org, Thurgood Marshall became a champion of civil rights. You know how big of a title that is? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, we're a champion of such an influential movement, such a big movement in our country, that because of that, we're able to have diverse groups of school and everything. And I don't think it's just school. You know, I mean, you start off somewhere, you show someone it's not impossible. You know, it starts motivating other businesses. You know, hey, we're going to add, a section for white people, a section for black people.
yeah.
And that's what I see this did. I mean, once you have one thing in the schools, it can start to inspire and start a whole new wave of revolution. And start telling people, you know what? We've been doing this for far too long, and it's not fair. We have to wake up. We have to fight against it, and we have to change it now. Because we can't. What I've always thought, right, purely opinion based, is we can't move together. We can't move forward together if we stay separate forever.
So that's why, like, he himself growing up experienced so many cases of racial discrimination. From being that as growing up to being the first Black Supreme Court justice for, like,
It's a major accomplishment. I mean, yeah, and I think a lot of people like in the South, growing up in the South, a lot of people underwent that. Well, I mean, this is someone who has struggled the same way they have, has gone through their things, and now they're over here showing, you know what, it's possible. We can fight against it. We can do it, and it's not just we can fight against it, but we can win. You know, we can change things. But I know Dimitri can tell us how these his accomplishments, which are major, are still influencing us today. So, Dimitri, would you please tell us how?
Yeah. So Thurgood Marshall's contributions are still influencing our daily lives. In my source, from the Legal Defense Fund, it stated he was the leading architect of the strategy that ended state-sponsored segregation, particularly through his legal work and at the Legal Defense Fund. This work was significant in cases like Brown versus the Board of Education, which is a simple but separate but equal doctrine that paved the way for greater equality in education and public life for people of color. Marshall's significance laid the foundation for the civil rights movement and legal works that continue to uplift civil rights and racial justice to this day. His legacy assures that principles of equality before the law remain stagnant in American society, influencing policies and strategies and practices to this day, like Black Lives Matter and all that stuff.
Wow, well, I mean, what I'm seeing here is that Brown versus Board of Education was like a major influence in all this. I mean, do you see the effects of his, how do I say this? The effects of his work still today? I mean, have you personally experienced this? Like, can you tell us a story about how his work has directly influenced you?
one of the things is how like I'm able to go to school with all like go to school with like everybody, not just my own race and other races. So, like it's not like separate anymore, and we're like together. And I feel like that's really good for like community building. You know.
No, yeah, that is true. I mean, now you can go to school and you have like a whole, you have a diverse group. Yeah, you have like a whole mix of everybody. And it's not just, you don't just hear the stories and the culture of the people of your race. You hear the stories and the culture of everyone around you. And I think because of Thurgood Marshall, right, I mean, we have to thank him deeply. I mean, honestly, without this, we wouldn't even be talking about we wouldn't be talking about different cultures, or I mean, those who would be knowledgeable of different cultures, it'd be extremely rare, and it'd only be the point of view from the textbooks and the articles, but not actually getting to know somebody and connecting with them. And that's how you get like the deepest information about their stories, their environment from them, from their perspective, not what textbooks tell you, not what other things tell you, but from their perspective. Do you have another way Thurgood Marshall's works have influenced you? Or have impacted you instead?
I can't really think of any other way, but I know for like other people it was way different back then, because now we have a lot more resources and stuff that are, you know, available. And I think back then Thurgood Marshall's like accomplishments were way greater than today.
All right. Well, I mean, Eric, what do you think about this? I mean,
I think it's all true. Like back then, like kids couldn't be able to like go to school like with separate people, separate races. But now, like since he came like to step in, everyone has freedom. Everyone has like lots of freedom. Everyone is like they can all be in schools. Like everyone, like just admit like many races in schools. Like I think good of it.
yeah, and I think because of that, I mean, we see a lot less racism as a country, and I think, I mean, there's no doubt, right? There's still a lot of racist people in this country, but it's not as broad anymore. You know, I mean, there's people accept each other. You know, I mean, you can go down the street and then you can play with whoever you want to play with. You know, there's not like a whole bunch of laws telling you know what, no, you can't go play over here with this playground, or you can't drink from this water fountain. If I want to go drink from a water fountain, I can drink from that water fountain. If I want to go to a specific school, I can go to that school. They just have to accept me, right? But there's not like these tons of barriers and laws that impact us from actually going there. And I think because of that, we have to give a great thanks to Thurgood Marshall. He's an influential figure all around the board. I mean, just from the little bit of research that I've done on this, and I think the research, I can speak for everyone when I say this, I think he's become an idol. You know, I think a lot more people should know about him. I didn't really know much about him before we went into the subject, but now I'm super grateful. You know, I'm finally able to put a face to thank for being able to be in the same school as everybody. And what we're gonna do for our multimedia source is we're gonna play a little short video for y'all at the end. It's not by us, but it's from a YouTube channel, right? That the name is Learning Cartoon Network. This video was published October 2015, the 18th. And we accessed this January 12th, so very recently. It's called Thurgood Marshall History Educational Videos for Students. So we're gonna play that video for you at the end.
Right now, I want to talk to you about a famous person in history who was a great judge by the name of Thurgood Marshall. Have you ever heard of Thurgood Marshall? Well, if you haven't, that's okay, because he was a lawyer and a judge. Not only was he a lawyer and a judge, but he was the first African American to be named to the Supreme Court Justice in the United States of America. Thurgood Marshall was an inspiration to many minorities looking to go into the practice of law. Now, talking about his life, Thurgood Marshall was born on July 2nd, 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. Like many African Americans during this time in history, their lives were impacted by the practice of slavery in the United States. For example, Thurgood's grandfather was a slave. Although Thurgood's grandfather was a slave, he did escape slavery, making his way to the North and gaining his freedom. As for Thurgood's parents, his mother was a teacher, and his father was a steward at a country club there in Baltimore, Maryland. Although Thurgood's father worked at a country club, he loved to go downtown and listen to court cases because he loved the law. When he was not working, he'd hang out down there and take Thurgood. This is where Thurgood Marshall got interested in the law and started to go into that direction from there. During that time, schools were not like they are now. Thurgood wanted to go to the University of Maryland, but couldn't because they did not allow African Americans to attend school there. Seeing that he would be turned away, Thurgood attended Howard University to learn law, and he eventually passed the bar exam, which anyone who wanted to become a lawyer had to pass, and then Thurgood became an attorney. After becoming an attorney, Thurgood moved back to Baltimore, Maryland, and helped another student who was just like him and got turned away by the University of Maryland. He fought for that student and eventually won the case, and that stopped the University of Maryland from not allowing African Americans to attend their school. Another organization he helped was the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or you may have heard of the NAACP. Thurgood became the chief counsel for the NAACP, which meant that he was their go-to lawyer. Think of him in law like Michael Jordan or LeBron James to basketball. He was the man when it came to court cases. Thurgood would help to fight cases where African Americans were mistreated or wrongly accused and discriminated against. As a matter of fact, just like LeBron is the king and Michael Jordan is MJ, Thurgood had a nickname too. They called him Mr. Civil Rights. One of the best parts of his career was in 1954, where he worked on a case called Brown versus the Board of Education. At that time, schools were stopping kids from being together and separating them based on the color of their skin. Thurgood argued that the Constitution did not allow this and won the case, changing the school system in the United States. He was later appointed to the United States Court of Appeals by President John F. Kennedy as a judge, and kept going from there, doing big things in the world of law, and he was finally recognized by President Lyndon Johnson, who named him to be the first African American to be on the Supreme Court. Marshall died on January 24th in 1993, but not without leaving a legacy of fighting for the rights of equality for all men and women in the United States. It just goes to show a dad's love of the law influenced a son, which influenced change in the...
All right, and then Eric, I think you were gonna tell us how this whole video that we had, how Thurgood Marshall connects to the new book we're gonna read, To Kill a Mockingbird. So, how does Thurgood Marshall relate to our upcoming novel, To Kill a Mockingbird?
So it relates because, well, To Kill a Mockingbird and Thurgood Marshall, they both provide the fight for justice.
Okay.
So like, in To Kill a Mockingbird, it talks about a wrongly accused black male and him being discriminated and overall racist, like in the story, like...
Yeah. And then Thurgood Marshall,
Yeah,
he fights against racism. He's like,
Yeah.
it's a leading cause. He's like, you said the champion of civil rights, right?
Yeah, champion civil rights.
Uh-huh.
He will fight against injustice and segregation, like in the Brown v.
Yeah.
Board case, like...
So it kind of gives like a context of like what the area was like, the setting, it like allowed us to immerse ourselves into what daily life would be like during To Kill a Mockingbird, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And we honestly really do hope that you had a great time and that we were able to teach you a little bit about Thurgood Marshall and the impacts on his daily life. So, do you have any last words you want to say?
I just want to say that he's like you said, before coming into this, I didn't even know much about him, but like now that I know more about him, like I'm just happy that he came to step in.
Yeah.
He came to help fight for a lot of people. And yeah, like thank you for tuning in. Dimitri, do you have something to say?
Well, no, that's all for me, but I really appreciate Thurgood Marshall being an outstanding member in the history of not only for black people's lives, but other races' lives as well. And I hope in the future that we can end racism for good.
All right, thank you. I think we all hope that. And honestly, life would not be the same without the works of Thurgood Marshall. And I think it just takes one person every time to spark a movement, to end something that's been long put into place, to take apart these systems, these racist systems that have kept us, that has impacted us negatively, ultimately. And I think that's it. So thank you once again. Thank you for watching our video, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day. And honestly, we really hope you learned something. I hope we did a good job trying to teach you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.